Namaste everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host Kushalmehra. All right, time to talk about a book again. Today we are talking to Aabhas Maldahiyar and we are going to be discussing his book Hashtag. ये पहली बुक है जिसका नाम में फर्स्ट पहले हैशटैग आ रहा है मुझे लगता है हैशटैग मोदी अगेन व्हाई मोदी इज राइट फॉर इंडिया एंड एक्स कम्युनिस्ट मैनिफेस्टो आभास वेलकम
Thank you, Kushal bhai. Good evening to everyone, and it's my pleasure to be on your podcast. I have been a keen observer of your podcast. I do watch it regularly, and it's one of the great savior in Bangalore traffic to me. So whenever it
अरे यार वैसे आई हैव टू एडमिट आई हैव बीन टू बैंगलोर रिसेंटली फॉर द आइडियाज इंडिया कॉन्क्लेव एंड उसके पहले बहुत साल पहले गया था एवरी टाइम आई गो टू बैंगलोर द वेदर इज ब्यूटीफुल बट मैन द ट्रैफिक सक्स एंड इट इज वर्स देन बॉम्बे बिफोर एनीवन सेज कि मुंबई से बैंगलोर का ट्रैफिक बेहतर है भाई आई एम नॉट इन एग्रीमेंट बैंगलोर ट्रैफिक इज एट अनदर लेवल मतलब
yeah,
देयर इज ट्रैफिक एवरीवेयर ओवर देयर
yeah. And in fact, I first thought that I will take the podcast going back home. Then I thought कि अगर शायद मैं कभी पहुंचूंगा ही नहीं. So that's why I stayed back at office and चलो यही से कर लेते.
Okay, Abbas, this is your first time on the podcast, so I'll request because maybe a lot of the listeners and the viewers of the podcast may not be may not know about you. So just for that sake, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself,
Yeah.
your background, and everything?
So if I put it very smooth, very in a very summarized form, then I would say that I call myself a mature history researcher because I don't consider myself to be a trained historian, so I always better safe to call yourself a mature researcher. And at the same time, professionally, I do work as an architect and urban designer, and I was part of a certain stretch of Namami Gange project as well. So I had designed few of the spaces while I was working for a firm, and I do take a lot of interest in looking into anything which is related to the past, and I'm very fond of taking the opinions which don't really go in line with thoughts which I have currently. So it gives me even more food for the thought, and more constructs can be created. And so far, I have written three books, of which two were fiction. One was written quite early when I was 19 years old. That was called Restart, an architect's journey to the Parliament House. And a second book was called Crossing the Line. Both these works were fiction. And the third one was came in 2019. It is called Hashtag Modi Again, an ex-communist manifesto. And currently I'm working on three projects parallelly as in book. So there's one humongous project on the Mughals, whom actually should not be called Mughals because they themselves didn't call themselves Mughal. They were called Timurids. They themselves called themselves the Timurids. So it's a 6-book series. The first book is would be out for pre-order anytime soon. The copy editing is on. And other project which is again on the publisher desk is on Gandhi assassination. That's a book. So those are the things briefly about me, and yeah, I see interest in everything related to science, maths, and of course history.
So, okay, so you're someone who, again, this is the story of what I loosely call the non-left writing space in India. Most of us, I am in the speaking space and listening space, but most of us come from professional backgrounds. We were doing something else in our life, but as they say, whatever was happening around us in the popular discourse or in the academia would listen to things and then digest them and imbibe certain quote unquote truths in quotes. इसके लिए मैंने quotes में लिखा. But then always, all of us growing up, we lived this dual life where we would hear these things and then we would have our parents saying certain things to us. This has been the story of every young Indian kid most of the time. And I guess everybody's journey. But your journey is interesting because in your book you start with your family and a lot of things. Now, like, okay, I have seen leftists in my life, but you seem to be the man who went the whole hog. You were a communist. मतलब you are leftist on steroids, as they say. So ये कम्युनिस्ट कहाँ से बन गए भाई?
So, Kushal bhai, I must set the context where in a very initial phase so that people can really get it that how the things were happening. Because I come from a very small town called Hazaribagh. Hazaribagh is in Jharkhand, जिसके MP हमारे यशवंत सिन्हा हुआ करते थे. उसके
हाँ
बाद
हाँ.
जैन से, yeah, the famous Yashwant Sinha who used to head the Ramnavami Julus, very famous Ramnavami Julus of Hazaribagh.
Mhm.
I couldn't believe my eyes looking at what was happening from there, but that's a different thing. So, and I grew up in a very multicultural kind of setup. So, the morning would happen where there's just every Sunday morning I will walk down to a church, which would be some 500 meters or say half a kilometer from my house, and then there would be a uh, dargah, which is around say a kilometer and a half. So every Friday, my father will take me there, and वो एक जर्नी था पूरे वीक का दैट यू हैव टू गो इन फ्रंट ऑफ दरगाह वहां पे जाके चादर भी चढ़ाते थे फिर आप चर्च जा रहे हो एंड देन ऑफ कोर्स जैसे इन आवर हिंदू ट्रेडिशन so called the vogue Hindu tradition, you are always taught that all the religions are same and they lead to one same truth and सब कुछ सेम है वहाँ पे and and you suddenly if you are not embedded too much into a tradition तो कई बार आप उसके वैल्यू भी कई बार समझ नहीं पाते हो और ऐसा होता है कि हमारे ट्रेडिशन में जैसे आपकी दादी पूजा कर रही हैं या कोई कुछ पढ़ रहा है पूजा पाठ हो रही है तो उसके रैशनल एस्पेक्ट्स को कई बार एक्सप्लेन नहीं किया जाता है हर चीजें होती है कि भगवान की चीजें उसमें बीच में मत बोलो तो अब जब आप अपने मुस्लिम फ्रेंड्स या फिर क्रिश्चियन फ्रेंड्स या और दूसरे पंथ के फ्रेंड्स के इंटरेक्ट करते हो दे हैव अ वेरी स्ट्रांग लॉजिक एंड रैशनल टू वट एवर दे हैव सीन या उनके जो भी ट्रेडिशन हो तो उसको कहीं ना कहीं वो जस्टिफाई करने की कोशिश करते थे और वहां से बेस ऑफ फाउंडेशन रेडी हो चुका था और माई फादर इज अ हिस्टोरियन सो एंड ऑफ कोर्स फादर बीइंग अ हिस्टोरियन गेव द होल आर्यन इन्वेजन थियरी से बहुत सारी चीजें शुरू होती थी लेकिन एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग एस्पेक्ट था कि दिन भर में वो जो फॉर्मल एकेडमिया है उनका वो that would come. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Generally, it's told that I have to speak in Hindi, so
नहीं
I'll
नहीं,
switch
ऐसा
to English.
कुछ नहीं है, हिंदी और इंग्लिश
Okay,
दोनों बोलो, कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता.
okay. So yeah, my father would give me this formal academic thing of Aryan invasion, and Indra was a Aryan and one of the king who came, and so all those kind of things. And then in the night we would go onto the terrace, and then we see the Saptarishi. Then he will tell me the story related. So there was all sorts of mix and matches of various kind of ideas which were flowing. बट जब आप 14-15 को के आसपास पहुंचते हो और यू आर just looking to find the rational logic so and you are a person who is not ready to accept anything which can be given with certain without logic you're not gonna accept anything so कहीं ना कहीं आप हिंदू ट्रेडिशन से यू स्टार्ट जस्ट आप उससे दूर भागने लगते हो क्योंकि आपके पास लॉजिक नहीं है रैशनल नहीं है एंड the moment I entered into the architecture school, not many people are aware, but architecture school is a great hub of a lot of communist ideas, left leaning ideas, and of course the communist ideas.
आर्किटेक्चर स्कूल.
Yeah, that
ओके
is
ओके, वी
surprisingly
नीड टू
not.
टॉक अबाउट दिस. नहीं, मैं देखो
Yeah,
भाई, मैं कोई आर्किटेक्चर बैकग्राउंड नहीं, अपने को, अपन तो कपड़े वाले इंसान, अपने को क्या पता है सब. मगर प्लीज एक्सप्लेन करो ये
yeah,
क्या होता है इधर.
yeah. So I will certainly go into it. So that's where now I have come from a background जहाँ पे mix and match of the culture है. I have failed to get a lot of logic and rationals from my Hindu tradition, and I am the one who has declared that all those things are superstition. चाहे वो हवन हो रहा, whether it's havan, any kind of tradition, everything is very much of a superstition. There is no logic, no rational behind it. But and of course there is one god जो monotheism का concept है that looks more rational. इस तरह के thoughts के साथ we have walked ahead. I have walked ahead. And once I come to the architecture school, it's a place of extreme freedom of expression because any design school, if you can't explore into maximum freedom of expression, you can't explore into maximum freedom of speech, then your design will not speak when you are young and fresh. And your design needs to be as vibrant and as more imaginative as it should be to, of course, to get the credits and the get more CGPA and the things. But of course, you want to be a great designer. And while the theory of design is being penetrated into your brain. The most of the literature which comes from, it's very much based on the ideas laid down by Le Corbusier. Le Corbusier, for many people who don't know, he is the man who had designed the city of Chandigarh. And we, every architect wants to be just another Le Corbusier. At least in my phase in 2006 to 11, when I was in architecture school. So when you read the works of Le Corbusier, so he was an architect who categorized his architecture works into, and of course, it was more on the modernist lines. So modernism was in vogue, and concrete was his material. Right, he brought in concrete to a great effect, and so, and when in the theory of design, then you get to read a lot of art movements. Right, you get to read about postmodernism, and while you're reading it, and once you are start peeling the layers, you will reach to the Derrida's, the concept of Derrida. And uh, of course, many people see Derrida just as a philosopher, but architects draw a lot of inspiration from him. And whole idea of deconstructivism, which is a very famous, there's a very famous architect called Franco Gehry, who built the Walt Disney's building, which people might have seen there, वो Disney का जो ये logo में बन करके आता है, so the Walt Disney's building. And there are many such structures, yeah, which follow the ideas of deconstructivism. Then when you further unearth and go more deeper into it, so you will these things will take you to further studies to the communist ideas, like it all starts with the Marx work, and then you tend to read more about the cultural Marxism, and then the postmodernism follows, and the whole sequence is there. So if you're interested into reading, so all this literature just opens up in front of you. And so a person who has no encounter with the own traditional values, and suddenly all this literature have just poured in, and he has found the rational into the monotheism and the other faiths to some extent, and he has seen the Hindu tradition as so superstitious, so he automatically starts inclining towards the ideas which will lead him to become a communist. So the ideas are germinated, and that was a phase in India. That phase, India was under the churn, because Congress was under this whole thing of corruption. The bucket of corruption had just opened up, and the people with
2G scam, coal scam,
and
ये सब time था.
lots of things were just flowing in. And for a person who has seen that Hinduism has got a lot of vile and not great ideas really come out from the Hindu school of thought. So Hindutva obviously was gonna be something to keep a distance from. And so when you follow the line of communism, so it's more of a abuse against any idea which is so communism, I always have, now I realize that it's very much like a religious setup. If you look at it, it's very much based on an idea that certain dictate, and there's two principle: dialectic materialism and dialectic determinism, which really determines a lot of things. And in that, when I just zoom it down and make it very local in the nature, so Hindutva is something which you certainly need to despise. And so BJP was certainly not gonna be something in the equation. And the ideas of the social equality and all those things, which really come as a as a sugar coating from the side of the communists, they always tend to make any youth align towards it, because har koi revolutionary, everyone wants to become a revolutionary. Still, if you put a Google search, I don't know whether it happens right now, you put a thing called revolution in the Google search, you might find the closed fist in the red color or something. Ye pehle image aate the revolution. So the communism had always taken the space which would define revolution, which would define a change, which would define the walking more towards the modern or the scientific temperament, right? So it just grabs you if you are a bit off your route. And it did happen. And I was completely inclined towards getting into the setup, if I can get a chance to, if at all I have to look at politics, so it will be definitely the communist politics and nothing else. So that's a very brief premise which I have given. Yeah.
So this is very interesting because look, I come from a different story. Let me be categorical. By the time I reached college, we had nothing to do in life other than watch Sachin Tendulkar. we would not do anything else, to be very honest. हम लोग इतने politically active नहीं थे, and then we went to business schools, right? हम लोग तो commerce की degree कर रहे थे, and when you do commerce degrees in India, the the landscape is very different, and this is what happens. And I'm sorry, this is something that I've observed even in the United States of America. So the only place, even in the United States of America, where studies after studies have shown, and the trend holds in Canada too, where there is a lesser of a left wing bias and there is a semblance of balance between left and right, is only in the economics and business school departments. Only there. Everything else is actually just one political party. In the case of North America, they are 90% Democratic leaning, one party, and they are only leaning to the left. That's all. It is a complete capture. And मेरे को आर्किटेक्चर का जीरो एक्सपीरियंस था, विच इज व्हाई आई एम लाइक आई थॉट आर्किटेक्चर वुड, नाउ आई नो पोस्ट मॉडर्न आर्किटेक्चर exists and all those things exist. In fact, let me be very open, like the only aspect of postmodernism that I have maybe enjoyed a little bit in my theoretical understanding of that subject as a nerd who loved reading it is actually the architectural bit. कि पोस्ट मॉडर्न आर्किटेक्चर मुझे थोड़ा फैसिनेटिंग लगा. बाकी मेरे को पोस्ट मॉडर्निज्म में मेरी जिंदगी में कुछ अच्छा नहीं लगा. मतलब इट हैज बीन द मोस्ट यूजलेस आइडियोलॉजी दैट आई हैव एवर कम अक्रॉस, एंड एनीबॉडी हु थिंक्स दे आर समथिंग फैंटास्टिक, और उन्होंने बहुत बड़ा मेजर लायोटार्ड को पढ़ के लाइफ में कुछ उखाड़ लिया है, तो पता नहीं क्या उखाड़ लिया है उन्होंने, मुझे नहीं मालूम. मगर now I want to focus on this. You briefly mentioned the anti-corruption phase. Now your chapter 3 and 4 of the book is totally dedicated where you call the anti-corruption movement, and but मेरे को तो chapter 4 के बारे में बात करना है. You title it Kejriwal my hero. हाय हाय हाय. ये I can relate to this. I was one of the people who started India against corruption in 2009, but I was an open BJP member even at that time. What difference है? I jumped onto the anti-corruption movement, and the moment I understood what Arvind Kejriwal is, I left it in 6 months. I was like, ये बंदा अपने काम का नहीं है, अपने को नहीं जमता है. But please tell about your story. Why what attracted you to Kejriwal?
Yeah, so as I said, that the country was going through the churn, and Congress was completely known as a party of corruption. It was understood, and every youth wants a revolution. As I said, that revolution attracts the youth, and it happens right now too. So when the whole paradigm was shifting, somehow Kejriwal looked as a great aid of Anna Hazare, and that was a time when I had written the book called Crossing the Line. So it was a work of fiction, but it was very much inspired from a communist idea that a lot of disruption will happen, and some hero will come who will just change whole of a thing. And the protagonist of that book wanted to bring a change in education system, and also bring an end to the corruption. And though this book was written before all these things, Kejriwal and all had happened, but when this man came to the forefront with that, IIT, IAS, and he was in income tax department. Also, I'm not very sure. Yeah. So when these all things came up, and there were a lot of long Facebook posts comparing Kejriwal with Rahul Gandhi, right? That what is his qualifications and what those kind of things. So somehow started looking into Kejriwal, the protagonist of my book, which was Aditya. So it all seemed that he's a change maker. He will just bring the thing back to what it needs to be. And if a common man, or who has not seen any ups, na uske upar politician, na uske niche politician, if he comes into it, so perhaps there will be rule of the common people, which most of the communists, or the basic idea was layman communists, I would say, that who just see communism as a great revolution or a great movement, and they want to join it to bring the change. उनके लिए इस तरह के heroes काफी inspiring लगते हैं, and it happened with me. And the journey was so interesting that and the the life was architect's life was not so great back there, because again, this the whole communist mafia which has grabbed the whole architecture setup. So the fresher architects are paid very less, and now the situation has changed a lot for the architects, that the earning quotient, everything is really good. But there was a time when architects were there was a period when I heard that there's a famous architect called Hafiz Contractor. People would know his name. And so he would pay a stipend of rupees 500,000, and the fresher architects would work for 8,000 bucks. So the situation was not. So I did, when the Aam Aadmi Party was formed, I did contribute my month and a half salary ki jo bhi ho jaye isko to de dena chahiye. I just donated that into Aam Aadmi Party ka.
Itni
That was,
dedication.
yes, absolutely. I was
Oh
so
my
dedicated.
goodness.
So, and I just did it, and I felt that I wanted to volunteer. Bangalore में काफी वो vogue में था केजरीवाल and आम आदमी party, and um, I did went to a lot of there used to be certain small kind of rallies kind of thing. I was part of it, and I just hope that I always felt that I must meet Kejriwal someday. He's my hero and he's my protagonist. I was about to send a copy of my book to him, so a lot was happening, and it certainly seemed that he's just my hero. And yeah, so that was that is all about it briefly.
So, my experience was so India Against Corruption Mumbai. I was one of the first few people who started it along with Mayank Gandhi and a few others. Mayank Bhai, मुझे याद होता है कि वो Mayank Bhai would talk to Arvind daily. It came to a point where I was so frustrated. I was like, "ये रोज अरविंद से क्यों बात होती है?" I thought we were a separate movement. We do our thing. Arvind does his own thing. And irony of ironies, look where Mayank Gandhi has come all the way around today. Mayank Bhai is the biggest critic of Arvind Kejriwal on planet Earth right now. And I remember those days where Mayank Bhai used to talk to Arvind literally daily, every morning on the phone, daily, every day. Mayank Bhai used to talk to him, and man, that guy has really done a number on Arvind Kejriwal का तो award देना चाहिए. He has done a number on everyone. But now you talk about, you know, I mean, what do you mean? I was a little confused by this chapter 7. Why left is no more left? I mean, what exactly?
Yeah.
I mean, so what does it mean to be a lefty? As why is the Indian left not left then?
And so for me, there were two left. Left means bachani. So left is no more remaining. So that is how I meant about it. So this chapter is all about explaining that given a case study of how the things happens in Kerala, and the problems of the license system and permits and how the labors work, and I practically have seen a lot of problems working on the Kerala side, being an architect, that we face a lot of challenges. There are certainly some big challenges. So people are seeing and by the time I was writing a book, I was not much aware. So now, in this last 3 years, even my thoughts have evolved a lot. Like we all go through a lot of evolution, and
Sure.
yeah, so the idea of understanding the left has changed a lot, and now I have come to my own conclusion is that it's very tough to categorize anything as left and right in India, and I'm saying it with utmost sincerity, and I'm very honest about it. It's my complete personal opinion and a realized opinion, that it just can't exist, because the idea which like for example, if we go into the history that क्यों left आया क्यों right आया, there were many ideas which the left of then we are watching for comes into a lot of our traditions, practically speaking, like सबके लिए कुछ करना है, it's a soft socialism, or there's a various aspects to it which really exist over here. So left जिसके आज का left जिसके against लड़ रहा है, तो against whom they are fighting is actually are the ideas which the original leftist stood for long back, if we correlate it that way. So it's very so it doesn't exist, but certainly this chapter was more about that how the idea of left, or rather the communist is the communism is slowly fading away from the minds of people, and people don't see any joy subscribing to it anymore except in universities and the places like that.
So, do you think in the case of the Indian left, there is uh, there is no scope for originality anymore? Like, I'll give you an example, right? This is how the Indian left functions. The Indian left is basically a cut, copy, paste job of whatever new funda that comes out of Western academia. And I'll give you tangible examples to explain what I'm talking about. So, if it is coming down to social theories of breaking down society, right? Now, when they break down society in America, these are not hard scientific theories. So before somebody thinks like, this is not hard science, social science is not hard science. There is no universal application. It is not like social science uses theories of evolution or evolutionary psychology or evolutionary biology to look at things. They, in fact, hate evolution and evolutionary biology and psychologies because those things try to universalize patterns. Let's say, if I was to say, it doesn't get more anti-caste or anti-jati varna than me. Let's just be on the record. But I will never, carve out Hindus to be a unique case. Neither are they unique as in, the British made them do it, as a certain section of Hindus wants to say, or neither are they unique as in only they have it and everybody else got over it. No, hierarchies existed. They are a post agricultural phenomena. Some places had rigidity at X time, India had rigidity at Y time. It is only the time frame that changes. Now that's how I look. But the left comes up with absurd theories. So one of the theories that has been in vogue now in, academia for the last few years, it came up since the 70s and 80s. In fact, this theory was more of a the problem of nihilism that is, inherent in postmodernism. And then the Frankfurt school was doing its own thing, and it's like, अभी इसको मैं त्रिवेणी संगम तो नहीं बोल सकता हूँ, मगर दो 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 जा रही थी रिवर्स अलग अलग, क्योंकि they were very critical of each other. The Frankfurt school and the postmodernists, in their
Okay.
early days, they're very critical of each other. एंड देन दे रियलाइज कि यार हम दोनों का कुछ नहीं हो रहा है. तो इनका जो संगम आता है उसमें से एक 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 स्ट्रीम निकली थी, एक क्रिटिकल रेस थियरी की. क्रिटिकल रेस थियरी आपको जो कहना है, मैं उससे एग्री नहीं करता हूँ. मेरे को ये आउटलुक ऑफ द वर्ल्ड ऑफ इंटरसेक्शनैलिटी मेरे को समझ में नहीं आता है. एंड while on surface it looks like it has merits, but when you poke holes into it, it actually breaks down. अभी उसका कट कॉपी पेस्ट विथ नो ओरिजिनलिटी इंडिया में ला रहे हैं, और अभी लोग नहीं मानेंगे, नहीं है इंडिया में, क्योंकि इंडियन राइट विंग ऐसा ही है, झक्की है क्रिटिकल कास्ट थियरी. उन्होंने क्या किया, रेस को कास्ट से बदल दिया, और उन्होंने लिटरली सेम वर्ल्ड व्यू, सेम एपिस्टेमोलॉजी, सेम फ्रेमवर्क, सब कुछ सेम करके उसको ऐसे कॉपी किया, पेस्ट किया और छाप दिया इधर. और ये मैं जस्ट एक एग्जांपल के तौर पे आपको बता रहा हूं. इंडिया में हर एकेडमिक थियरी, हर एकेडमिक पेपर, अगर आप उनकी साइटेशंस चेक करोगे, आप उनका थियोरेटिकल फ्रेमवर्क चेक करोगे, आप उनकी बिब्लियोग्राफी चेक करोगे, वो लिटरली दे आर स्टीलिंग वेस्टर्न सोशल साइंस थियरीज दैट आर बेस्ड ऑन देयर सोसाइटल एक्सपीरियंसेस एंड दे आर मैपिंग इट ऑन इंडिया. सो मेरे को हमेशा ये लगता है कि आई एक्चुअली हैव वेरी लिटिल रिस्पेक्ट फॉर इंडियन लेफ्टिस्ट because they are not original. See, my grouse with the Indian left is their lack of originality. My grouse with the Indian left is not that they come up with bad ideas, because they did not come up with bad ideas. The mothership is somewhere else. That they are so unoriginal. So when you were going through this journey, did you ever not feel this thing कि यार हम लोग कोई भी चीज original नहीं पढ़ रहे हैं? When you were a leftist, I'm not talking about when you are what you are today, but like even when you were a leftist, से कभी ऐसा लगता नहीं था यार ये गोरे ही हमको theory दे ही जा रहे हैं?
Yeah, so that's very interesting, Kushal bhai, because so I'm very critical of complete architecture education, the way it is imparted in our universities and the schools. Right from like if you go to Delhi, you pick SPA, School of Planning and Architecture, you walk in there, you talk to 5 people or 10 people. Of course, you will. Once I put a tweet that SPA is hub of, so suddenly 3 4 nationalists came and नहीं भाई ऐसा नहीं होता SPA. But I know the reality. So if you go and talk to the people, you will find a lot of wild kind of ideas. Why I'm saying them wild, because architecture is a creative field where you are supposed to create. You're not supposed to take an idea and just impose it or वो कर दो आप. So I'm just getting into the genesis of it, that how it works. And I had come across these things. So I took a name of Lee Corbusier. So this man, Lee Corbusier, today we cherish Chandigarh, fine. Chandigarh as a city, it can be criticized, it can be appreciated. Of course, any architecture urban design project is bound to face a critical analysis. It does face. Now, Lee Corbusier designed it in a way because it's in a gridiron pattern. The major reason was that the automobiles were in the peak, and this man was very fond of automobiles. and he was so fond of speed. This was if one reads into the writings of Lee Corbusier, how he explains it, so it's very fascinating how he explains that the vehicles would be going at a certain pace and all those things. So what happened? The buildings and the plans, whatever he laid down, were coming up very much of an idea, or very much of as an impression of the Lee Corbusier. Now, every Indian today also wants to replicate and be one of those Lee Corbusier. Everyone, at least in my phase, it was more like that. हमको ली Corbusier ही बनना है, उसके जैसे buildings बनाने हैं. Now, same is what, but his ideas were not very Indic in nature. If जैसे Chandigarh ki, if one goes into the history, उससे पहले the Albert Mayer was the architect who had given a plan. It was a bit organic in shape, and it looked very Indic, and so it doesn't mean that the vehicles would not go at a certain pace and there would be obstacles and city would be organized, but it was more of Le Corbusier. Now, most of the Western ideas are very nihilistic in nature because it is bound to happen. Um, what generally happens that where you're born, irrespective of whether whatever you may like to call it, but there is always a certain impact of the society and the civilizational values which have been there, like whatever name we may like to call it. Now, when Marx was also setting up his ideas, it was more of a reflection of the book of David, that there is a end of a world. That's why Marx's idea also runs in a very linear pattern, and that's how it flows. Now, problem with the Indian left, which I was unable to observe that time, is that they also tried to replicate. First of all, Marx and other people just replicated the ideas laid down by the founding fathers of the Enlightenment movement, and the whole ideas then just further evolved and came to be known as something else. Yes, of course, they were refined to a great extent, and there were much more things into it. But our Indian, if you have to work on it, you need to go into understanding that what the civilizational value is or what it is about, if you want to present anything in context of the Indian values. Now, here the leftism was all about either you subscribe to the idea of China or USSR, till the time it was really fragmented and everything then further got aligned to the idea of China. And then while you are aligning with the China, the literature, what is being subscribed is more based on the cultural Marxism, Gramsci onwards, which is postmodernism, which is also wokeism to a great extent. Because what it is doing, say, what left does is that they want the employee against the employer, they want the student against the teacher, they want the team A against the team B, because this whole equation fails if there is not a class struggle, and in this class is a constant wherein you can replace it with anything else. So they just bring it just to justify a equation which was laid down by Karl Marx and the founding fathers of the Marxism, or the communism per se. And so that's why the moment they go into anything which is not Western, the equation will fail. They will not fail to become what is destined to become, that is communist. It will just, these ideas cannot exist. So they keep on doing it. And I did come across, I saw it in my own architecture education. There's a whole lot of copy pasting of the ideas what West has led. That's why we know nothing about the temple architecture, right? The temple ka matlab sirf ye nahi, it's not a place of worship, but it's a lot of enormous amount of science and rational which goes into it. It's a whole ecosystem in itself. So we are not taught about it because we are hell bent to copy the ideas of the buildings and the urban setup of the West, and that just is degrading our quality of work, and it happens in all the profession, and communists are no different.
Okay, so if there was a specific incident in your life, look, everybody has a tipping point, and I'll share mine with you. Like, I was never a left finger, I'll be very clear. But when did I have my consciousness risen as a Hindu? That, everybody has those moments in their life when they realize. So I had two specific moments. The first was obviously the Ram Janmabhoomi movement, and I was a young kid, 11, 12-year old, when I had my first moment as there is something like a Hindu identity now. It was a very novice thing. And then I became your regular kid who watches cricket, plays cricket, does things in life, gets a. The second time when I had a specific jolt and I realized my emptiness and I started exploring my identity was actually when I left India. When I left India and I came to Canada to get further education. That's when I, my identity of what the other perceives me to be, point number one, I did not know who I was, but the other had an idea of what I'm supposed to be for them. Everybody has those caricatures and stereotypes. That's what led me to go from point A to point B. Now, you obviously were raised to be a left leaning Marxist in a certain. Now, what was your tipping point? What led you change? Like, was there a moment specifically there, like, यार ये तो मतलब इसका तो कोई समझ में नहीं आ रहा क्या हो रहा है, ये क्या बोल रहे हैं? So what led you to, what pushed you on the other side, or the dark side as the left would call it?
Yeah, so again, it was thanks to architecture, I must say, because one crucial point was that I was on a. This is the final point, so I will pick this one, which really brought the complete transformation. So I had this imagery of the monks and the sadhus and the rishis and everyone, that they are just some bunch of fools and कुछ नहीं आता उनको. They are superstitious people. That's saffron was a sign of superstition to me, if I be very honest. And so it was a study trip to Ajanta and Ellora caves. And first I went to Ellora along with the students. I was teaching in a college that time as a studio assistant. So in a design studio, so I had to, because I just for being there as a mentor. So in the Ellora, again the ginormous scale of the Kailasha temple, just I was astonished, and it was like, oh my god, because all my life in the third, I would remember in the fourth semester, I had just drawn the sketch of Ellora, the Kailasha temple for 10 odd marks, nothing more. I knew nothing more than that for that. But when I looked at it, the scale, the quality, the detail, like Walter Gropius said, that God lies in detail. And I was looking at the crazy detail there, and I just couldn't figure out how it's built, because there's a lot of theories even about it. But again, that was still not the point. When I further went into the Ajanta caves, and the Ajanta caves have a very different kind of section. Section means if you cut any object and then when you like to look at it, that is a section. So, so in terms of section, if you look at the Ajanta caves, you enter, you step down, there's a big depression, and then you see a lot of paintings around done into it. Now I was curious because in the dark space we are just seeing the painting torch, using torch and all, and the medium of those paintings were the organic colors, right? And because there were no chemical colors that time, it was just the organic colors which people used to do the painting, and the paintings were done by the monks, and there was no light. So I was curious that how did they make such a detailed paintings, right? That this amazingly detailed. If I'm sure that many people would have been to Ajanta caves, and the amount of detail which are there in painting is just magnificent. So I couldn't understand. I asked the guide; he had no answers. So that how did they do the painting? And then I went to Professor Deshpande. He was a architect of that place itself, and he was a professor too. So in the evening banter, I asked him that, "Sir, could you please enlighten me that how the painting were made?" And he just said me, "Guess, guess, guess," but I couldn't. Then he said that you must have observed something, that when you enter the cave, you there are ditches. So basically, you step down. So then I asked that, yeah, I saw it. So, but what? So, what has that to do with the painting? They said that, now think again, but I couldn't. So then he said that, those guys were using the so-called snail's laws of reflection. So like, oh, so do you mean that they stored water in this? And because it's facing the south, the sun rays coincident Cārvāka, some ways like that, and by the process of reflection, because this is at an angle, enormous amount of light was generated, and that's how they did the painting. Because had they used fire, the carbon would have spoiled the organic colors. The painting wouldn't have existed. So that was a baffling point for me, and I was like, wow, because I thought them to be superstitious people, and here someone is telling me that they are using the so-called laws of reflection to generate the light to do the paintings. I was flabbergasted, and I that was a point. And when I went back, there used to be a small stall of ASI at the entry, itself. I collected few books to know more about the place, and the ASI books had certain footnotes which started driving you back to our own literature. That I got curious to know more of a science of our past, and the things like that. I came across a lot of obnoxious things as well, because there are a lot of blogs which will talk about a lot of things that we had everything, but of course we didn't had everything. We all know, should know about it, but definitely Indian civilization or the Bharatiya civilization had a lot for the science and technology. So here was a guy who had rejected the idea of subscribing to the idea of Hinduism, because I thought to be superstition, because I was not given a rational. Now the rationals were pouring in abundance, a lot of reasons. I'm reading about Aryabhat. I'm reading about how the atomic theories were being perceived and what Vedanta is. There's a lot of things which were just going. A lot of materials were there, and that started changing me. And of course, there was a whole analysis of the Hindutva, that what it means, what's the role of RSS. I joined the RSS Shakha in Bangalore to understand that how Shakha works, because मैं वो इंसान हूँ जो जब तक मैं देखूंगा नहीं, I will not understand it, I will not conclude that that's really the way it is. I believe in the salt analysis का process I applied. You take a problem, you observe, you experiment, and then you infer. I did it with RSS Shakha, and this going to Shakha was a very different experience. My perspective was, so a lot of things started changing, but yes, that was a tipping point.
All right, fair enough. But if somebody might come back to you and say, अरे ठीक है, आपको अभी तक आपने सिर्फ मतलब आपने पुस्तक के डिस्कशन में सिर्फ बताया कि लेफ्ट में क्या खामियां हैं, that still doesn't make me become a why Modi again voter or a Modi supporter. So I know you have given matlab, 65% of the book is you charting out different reasons why you believe Modi has had specific wins, and this is why Modi again. But obviously, we can't go through the entire thing, and I want people to read the book. But if somebody was to come back to you, because I want to leave the last 10 minutes about something you have written recently, and I'm so happy तुम्हें भी गालियां पड़ी उसके लिए, so मैं तुम्हें और गालियां पढ़वाना चाहता हूँ, वो लास्ट में करेंगे. मगर फिर भी if somebody came back to you, but that still doesn't make the case for why Modi again. So what is
Yeah.
that case then?
So for me, one thing, two, three things was very important. That Modi certainly had. That was a period I had not voted for Modi in 14. That's a very clear case. Though this enlightenment, so-called enlightenment, had walked to me in 2013, but still I was not very sure about Modi. But the whole tenure of 14 to 17 till the 17 was so exciting for me, because I was seeing something in India which in my thorough reading, because I was reading a lot after this Ajanta episode, and of course I was reading in the past also, that when I read Marx and other people, so it was not that I was not reading. So I did a lot of reading. I read a lot about India, and all in the past of India for the 70 odd years or something like that, 65 years, nothing much had happened. And it was a very thrilling experience, the way we were dealing with our local threats. When I say local threats, the local neighbors, especially Pakistan that time, it was very different. No one had done it before. The way the whole digitization had happened, because I'm not that back into the generation, but I certainly come from Hazaribagh, a very small town where I still did my matriculation preparation in a लालटेन जलाना पड़ता था, because एक दिन में 3 घंटे बिजली होती थी. I used to go and stand in the queue for the kerosene, and I have seen that pain. So the way उस जर्नी के बाद बैंक में खड़े होके आज भी आपका शायद पैसा नहीं निकलेगा, अगले दिन निकलेगा. The things were so problematic, and how the things started changing just through SMS you can. So there were a lot of things, a lot of exciting things which is just turning up, and the whole experience of those 5 years were good enough for me to come up with. And what had actually happened, Kushal, that I had left writing. So there's a very in 2015 I had written a book, and that was about the mysteries of the Ajanta caves, and a lot about the Indian traditions, and it was a work of fiction. And I will name the literary agent sometime, maybe after a year or something, when this book comes up. It's shaping again. It's going to publish. So that literary agent had taken up the book, and she rejected the book when the award wapsi happened. I got a thing that things don't match, so we will not like to take your book. So then I saw the real face of the intolerance of the left, because I was not a big guy, just a small guy, but that was enough for me to really understand that what's wrong with them. And then in 2018 or something, I had seen a whole thing of a Facebook post was there about why not to vote for Modi. 20 reasons or something. It was circulating in 2018. So one of my colleague said that because I had gone through the transformation, I was become a very pro Modi person, but I left writing. They said that can you just come up with a opinion, a points of your own experience that so I collated all those things in a Twitter thread. It became very popular, and then everyone said that write a book. So maybe that, and that's how even the book materialized, and it came out in record time of 3 months. Garuda did a fantastic job of bringing it.
Fair enough. So you obviously in your book, you talk about very specific things, like you talk about Ayodhya,
Yeah,
you touch upon Ambedkar, you talk about the surgical strikes, you talk
yeah,
about Gujarat.
yeah, yeah.
But okay, let me maybe talk about Modinomics then, because you call it Modinomics, and I'm gonna use a question asked by a viewer, live viewer right now, and I'm gonna ask this question. Is somebody asked this question because you have a chapter on Modinomics, so it's only fair I ask you that viewer's question. Uh, so the person has asked this question about क्या किधर गया यार? It was something to do that कि is it not a fact that the economy grew faster, pulled more people out of poverty during the UPA years? Did Islamic terrorism not increase in JNK during NDA years? Then why do you support Modi?
See, as far as the terrorism is concerned, so there can be different ways to look at it. That whether it's increased or not, and from in my opinion, the Islamic terrorism is something which cannot be fought the way we have been fighting, or perhaps it's very tough to really analyze and judge that how it can be fought because it has got a very different kind of nature. And to really put it upon any government of the day कि उसके वजह से ये बढ़ गया या फिर इन घटनाएं बढ़ने लगी है, it is not because there are people who are ready to become a suicide bomber. There are people who are up there too because there's a whole concept that how it works, that if you do this that something is there, that even if you are gonna die. So the whole idea works in a very different model, that people are so inspired to do those stuffs. So and the supposition will keep on increasing, but the steps which were taken, like for example 370 was a very brave step, very bold step. Though I'm still curious that why CA is not being implemented and for the full-fledged ways and the aspects like that. I really want it to be there, but certainly 370 was a very positive step and very big step. It's not the positive would be a bit too small word to for it. And then the way we had avenged Pulwama, and there were a lot of things, right? That you send out certain message to the neighbor, and the way we have dealt with China is recently is really amazing. And if one goes into detail of it, one can get that how we have dealt with China. So perhaps if one looks into the past, that whenever we had a skirmish with these countries, so you have to compare apple with apple. You're not supposed to pick oranges with the apple. That when we were having the skirmish with China, then what was our actions in the past? What are the actions right now? How we were dealing with the Kashmir policies for very long, even till the Vajpayee time, and how it really changed um, in due course of time. So that has been there. And as far as the economics is concerned, one needs to relate everything with the global context too, because if we try to read economics just in the local terms, then perhaps it can satisfy our own consideration कि middle class का कुछ नहीं हो रहा है या फिर हमारा तो प्रॉब्लम ही बढ़ता जा रहा है. But once you start looking at the whole global context, it all starts making sense that why suddenly the things didn't work in a way right way, though it was working much more better in UPA for some of the places.
Okay, in fact, I'm going to answer this question too. On the economy bit, I did a detailed discussion with Harsh Madhusudan Gupta, and Harsh actually gets into detail on explaining how the UPA years were basically riding on the bogey of the NDA policies of Vajpayee. And they basically, then UPA 1 was doing everything, having fun there. And then UPA 2, the economy starts to taper off, and the bad decisions of UPA 2 have to be cleansed again by Modi 1, and then Modi 2 puts it forward. Is it ideal? No, I don't believe Modi's economic policies are ideal, and I'll be the first one to say that. But doesn't mean that UPA was better. That's point number one. As far as national security is concerned, it depends on how you break it down. National security can be broken down in internal security and external security. As far as external security is concerned, I think the NDA's record is like 1,000 times better than the UPA, and you can objectively map that. Now, in internal security, which parameter are you going to judge NDA on? Now, if the parameter is going to be agitations, then definitely you will have, you will have to compare how many agitations happened under NDA, how many agitations happened under UPA. And people see, the problem with the brain is it always laced with recency bias. Now, the recency bias will come, you'll look at Shaheen Bagh, you'll come at the farmers protest, but then the UPA had Kejriwal's protest, the Baba Ramdev protest, Kejriwal ka protest, Baba Ramdev ka protest. I don't know how many remember the Gujjar reservation thing.
Was-
Then you had the Jat reservation thing. So if you want to do an objective analysis. Now, in terms of one more caveat you can add is how many terror attacks have happened and how many riots have happened under UPA vis-a-vis NDA. Now, that is another matrix that you can compare it with. And another sub matrix in that, or sub variable in that, you can add is how many lives have been lost. And I urge everyone to do it and share the data with me. I think Shamika Ravi had done some parts of the analysis where they were looking at rape statistics in India. If I remember correctly, Shamika Ravi had even shared a chart uh, using the NSA data. Yes, so incidents of rape reportage and data. If people want, I will even share the screen for my viewers. I remember this because I follow Shamika very well. So this is the incidence of the rape reportage in India. This is what has happened. This is the trend I'm showing you. I have not done anything extraordinary here. I'm literally quoting. This is the National Crime Bureau, Records Bureau, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India. This is the source, and they even had broken down it even further. And so I'm just sharing data with you. So so my request to the person, because the question was asked in all earnestness, there was no intention to do a gotcha kind of a thing. So here's my earnest answer to you. If this is how you look at these things, as far as economics is concerned, I will urge you can go and follow what Harsh Madhusudan Gupta and Rajiv Mantri have said. And as far as this question is concerned, I've tried to answer it in the best way possible too. Now I want to go to something before I start taking other questions. Is you have written this, you know, opinion piece on the 29th of July, which was in News 18. ठीक है? और वहां पे आभास आपने लिखा है, unfortunately no politician in India vouches for absolute free speech, and here's why. Now, uh, first of all, I'm glad to know that there is one more member in the free speech club, because it's a very small club in India where a few of us, and ironically all of us, are in what is called the non left. लेफ्ट तो है ही नहीं फ्री स्पीच के लिए इंडिया में. आई डोंट नो एनी फ्री स्पीच सपोर्टर्स ऑन द लेफ्ट इन इंडिया. होएंगे, मैं नहीं बोल रहा हूँ जीरो है, होएंगे, बट जो मोस्ट वोकल फ्री स्पीच एडवोकेट्स एटलीस्ट ऑन सोशल मीडिया एंड मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म्स पे हैं, जो आज की डेट में या जो यूट्यूब पे बोलते हैं या नेशनल टेलीविजन पे जाके बोलते हैं या किधर भी जाके बोलते हैं, वो सारे नॉन लेफ्ट के लोग हैं जो एक्चुअली बार बार आते हैं और रोते रहते हैं फ्री स्पीच के बारे में. सो इन आर्टिकल यू एक्चुअली you say this. IPC sections 95, 124A, 153A, 153B, 292, 293, and 295A were introduced by the British to curtail the freedom of expression, only to be further turned draconian by the Congress regime. Of these, 295A is very interesting. Now tell me how in this living world did you get attracted to this whole free speech issue? ये कहाँ से आ गया दिमाग में?
So I was always when I said that the day I entered the architecture school, that's insect of free speech had got into me, and it has been there with me, and I'm glad that it's there. So uh, so the whole point, which I always understood, is that if the ideas are not debated, if the ideas are not led to be discussed with, you cannot ever come to a conclusion to analyze or understand that what's wrong with the idea or what's right with an idea. However, the right may the idea be, but it needs to be debated. However wrong the idea may be, but it needs to be debated. The moment you put boom barriers in front of it, you just can't cross, and this is your limit. that's where all the kind of extrajudicial things which will just start popping in. That's a starting point of it. And had it not been the free speech, that perhaps I won't have been able to inquire more into my own civilizational values. So it was more because of free speech, and the more I rejected them, the more I later got attracted to it, because I was getting the rationals, I was debating it. So I was not going into the our traditional ideas, because I never found the rational reasons. I never found the appropriate way that how it went work. Now, while I was going all through with all the things happening, because I was not analyzing that whether what's wrong with 295A or something, but suddenly when, at least in past 6 months or so, we all have come across this word so many times, and of course I was aware that what 295A means, and but I was not so curious to analyze it. But then I thought that what 295A basically does is that it gives two kinds of weapons to the other side, which is too radical in nature. So this is also gonna put you under the bars, and of course, what follows and the other things, they are always gonna be there. They are never gonna be out of the brackets. Now, the situation in India is as such that, in my opinion, that because it is a very diverse land, and when I say diversity, I am very categorically saying this diversity is not about religions, which I'm talking about, but about the various kind of puns, various sampradayas, which always, because of different geography, and that's why you had different. So they all existed, they coexist. The Astic and Nastic have been coexisting. So, had there been the case of that much of blasphemous idea, I cannot vouch that I know all of it, but had it been that, they won't have, at least one would have existed, one would have ceased to exist. We have seen it in happening in other parts of the world. So, why India would have been exception? In fact, Nalanda was the place, Nalanda University, where both Astic studies and Nastic studies happened, coexisted together. And if we start using 295A so frequently, which is gonna happen, because the nature of the animal is as such that now the Hindus have been so frustrated, they will use it because the situation is the way it is. So there might come a situation where maybe down the 5 years or 6 years, this was my personal opinion and analysis, that there's so much of diversity, then कल को एक बुद्धिस्ट की बात शायद जैन को बुरी लग सकती है, एक जैन की बात शायद एक एक लिंगायत की बात शायद आर्य समाजी को बुरी लग सकती है, and there can be so many such things, and there can be so many cases of 295A which might just come in. It's just a juxtaposition. I'm not saying that it may just happen, and it will put a complete full stop to any kind of debates. You will always fear that whether I debate or discuss the Islamic ideas or not, I will always be scared to talk about it, because once upon a time I was looking into a lot of historicity and this, but I have stopped it because I know that there is a 295A which is gonna stop even the academic pursuit of the subject. So I completely stand for the absolute free speech, and I do see that none of the politician will ever come to take a stand on it.
तो गालियां जब पड़ी थी हिंदुओं से ट्विटर पे, तो अच्छा लगा था कि नहीं लगा था?
That was okay, because it was mostly in the DM, so I was quite. But there was a lot of people who, in fact, find it very exciting. But as a Galika part, it came in the DM. I just unread में वो पड़े रह गए. I never read it. वो भरे हुए हैं. So, but I have a message for people that it's very important that we analyze that we are so eager to speak out. हम बहुत जल्दी बोलना और react करना चाहते हैं. We have lost this art ki okay fine, उसने ये बोला, so let's analyze ki I'm just giving a case at what would go wrong with us. The state needs to, I certainly say that yes, state should take necessary steps to make those people calling for extrajudicial judicial treatments as equal as the murderous people. So something like that needs to be done. State really needs to come in, because 295A is definitely not a solution, because when they're standing with AK-47, you can't take a Diwali wala pataka and say that, hey, मैं इससे आपसे लड़ लूंगा. It cannot happen. The nature of the beast is something different. 295A can never be your savior. It rather will close all the discourse of how our civilization with the debates always existed.
You will not find me debating you on that. I am always going to be supporting you on that. Okay, so someone has asked this question. As you were an ex-communist, they say please ask Abhas ji books to read on communist thought and history.
So I will certainly. It's very important that you start reading the Das Capital because it's very important. I'm sure that Kushal, you have read it, Kushal, bhai, right? So you start with the Das Capital and read the works of Lenin, and because what Lenin writes uh, gives up a very strong, very important cases that it's thought that the communists are very pro science. Then you will find that Lenin was on to ban the quantum physics. I don't know whether many people know about it or not. Stalin was not very pro to create atom bomb because uh, atom bomb required the quantum physics, and quantum physics was not going in line with the kind of physics what these guys wanted to practice. So the works of Lenin are very important, and certainly you should read the writings on of Gramsci about the cultural Marxism. It will give you that the whole idea that it said that the powerful one creates the whole historical setup, and that's how the world exists. So this foundation structure, superstructure, all those things will come from the work of Gramsci. So Gramsci, Marx, Lenin. I would recommend as a starter, people must pick it up.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Somebody's just made a comment. They say, I did my degree in architecture. Architecture is basically functional art. Like, no, पता नहीं क्या होता, no how होएगा. Art is generally inclined to left liberal ideas. So, yeah. Mm, okay, so somebody has also, they keep on saying that the standard thing about BJP is that, and I'm just trying to summarize many comments who were critical of the BJP is, they say they have been pathetic when it comes to this thing, kya bolte hain, handling of. I know you're not a BJP spokesperson, but kya kare? Your book is saying why you vote for Modi, so you have to take these questions whether you like it or not. Tumne hai book likhi. so so they keep, it's almost as if the government has been involved in, and I'm a BJP voter. I've never hidden it. Like मैं अभी भी BJP को ही vote करने वाला हूँ. But the government has been, has become a past master in going from one train wreck to the other. So the first train wreck was Shaheen Bagh. As if Shaheen Bagh was not enough. You have the farmers' protest, and the way the farmers' protest was handled by the government of India. I don't know what to say about that. But what do you make of the government's overall handling of all these things?
So I wrote this book in 2019
I know.
based on 14 to
I know,
19,
I know,
but
I know, I know.
yeah.
So my follow up was going to be, have you nuanced your position?
Yeah, so see, I will be very honest that I'm not a Nota person, and my vote still goes to BJP. I'm very clear about it.
मेरा भी
And
by the way, मेरा भी by the way.
yeah, so two votes I have for BJP directly straight away. So
Hmm.
I'm certainly for BJP because the reason being that अगर इसको बहुत ही अननुआंस्ड में बोला जाए तो यस भैया आपके पास ऑप्शन नहीं है इधर इफ यू stand even a bit for the civilizational values थोड़ा सा भी I am very clear that I was very agitated when West Bengal happened, right? I was not in my right senses. I felt because my colleague named Kaushik Das, he lives he's just he's from Bengal, and he was telling the whole horrific stories that वहाँ पे क्या चल रहा है. He could see in front of his house, and the incidents of Bengal, in fact, made one of my communist junior from Bengal come into the fold to support BJP. So he was so sympathetic to what is happening to the BJP Karyakartas and the thing. So I'm very clear about it. I was very agitated. The way the Shaheen Bagh was handled, in fact, that's true. It was so somehow at the domestic forefront, when it comes to the domestic forefront security, the state has not done enough. And in fact, as I said, that the people asking for extrajudicial treatment should be given the test of the acerbic medicine. The more acerbic it is, the better it is. But somehow state has not done it. I have no doubt about it. But yeah, I do understand that I have a feeling that perhaps a lot of messages is not reaching in the right order to the whole, the diaspora of the BJP, the whole the right message is not reaching to the. So at times, yes, it's good. Keep on agitating, keep on trying to send the right message in the right spirit, because आपको ऐसे लिखना चाहिए कि लोग पढ़ें. It shouldn't be so outrageous कि at times no one even wants to read about it, because at times people may just care enough कि नहीं सच में maybe that there's something wrong and there's some need of churn inside the BJP, right? So yeah.
Yeah, but वो कहते हैं ना कि what do you make of this entire, I mean, मैं तो सीधा बोलता हूँ, there is this entire, now it has become a proper industry now of bashing BJP एंड आरएसएस को भी साथ में एक ऐसे पासिंग पंच मिल जाता है हर टाइम. ऐसा होता है 3 गाली बीजेपी को होती है, फिर आरएसएस आता है, उसको एक पंच मिलता है, फिर वो लोग आगे चले जाते हैं. नाउ आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट द लेफ्ट डूइंग इट, लेफ्ट तो ये करता ही है, मगर नाउ इट हैज बिकम अ प्रॉपर, सुबह उठो, बीजेपी को 4 गाली दो, फिर 5वीं गाली आरएसएस को दो, अपना 9 to 5 जॉब करो, फिर वापस आओ, रात को देखो क्या हुआ, फिर 4 गाली बीजेपी को दो, 5वीं गाली आरएसएस को दो. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आपको पूरा गाली देने का हक है, मुझे कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं उससे, मेरा फ्री स्पीच आपके लिए भी का सपोर्ट आपके गालियों के लिए भी है. मेरा पॉइंट ये है कि उसमें से कितनी, अगर हम जो बीजेपी की कंटेंट की बीजेपी की नॉन लेफ्ट की अब्यूजेस के कंटेंट लैंडस्केप को एनालाइज करें, जो मैं करता हूँ बहुत सीरियसली, उसमें कुछ लोग हैं जिनके क्रिटिसिज्म बहुत अच्छे होते हैं. आनंद है, इज वन ऑफ देम. आनंद के क्रिटिसिज्म बीजेपी के अच्छे होते हैं. आनंद इज वेरी फेयर इन हिज क्रिटिसिज्म बिकॉज ही स्टैंड्स अप फॉर द बीजेपी वेरी डज. And Anand is Nota, which is very interesting. Anand is not even a BJP voter, but he is in the non-left landscape. And there are many others. But there is also a huge industry now, and I use the word industry with full responsibility, which is now developed कि भैया आपको अगर सोशल मीडिया पे क्लिक्स चाहिए ना, तो कांग्रेस को गाली देना अभी थोड़ा पासे हो गया है. क्या है ना, इसमें क्लिक्स नहीं मिलते हैं. कांग्रेस पीपल आर काइंड ऑफ कन्विंस कि कांग्रेस इज यूजलेस और उसके अभी क्लिक्स नहीं जनरेट हो रहे, तो अभी चलो हम बीजेपी को गाली देते हैं. Have you come across something like this, or am I the only one who's feeling like this?
No, I have come across that thing, and I'm very honest about it, because I look at the thing from a very objective point of view, and for me, it is always like that. I need rational, I need solution. I am not a guy who will, spend even the time on the social media just keep. I have to be on social media. So when that happens, I would see that there would be certain thing. There would be a lot of criticism of RSS, a lot of criticism of BJP, many times based on a lot of fake blogs. Yeah, there are blogs which are written with a certain history of RSS, but there would be multiple things there. So that would be used. Then I would just, because being a history bug, I just get into it and I try to get the fact of it. I'll find that many times the things are not in a right order. Forget the right spirit. Right order, as in it's not correct. It's a completely false kind of information. The context is completely forgotten. So uh, and those kind of tweets, those kinds of the narratives are flooded. It's all there, right there. But I will certainly recommend everyone, please read the works of Ratan Sharda ji. It's very important. I consider it very important because uh, it is it is important to understand that what RSS is exactly doing, what it stands for, what are its values. Because if RSS is my subject or the subject of experiment, I need to observe it. I need to experiment around it. Like I went to the Shakha to see that how the things are. Then you infer. But here everyone is, as I said, कि हर किसी को बोलने में इतना, everyone is so eager to speak out. Immediately everyone wants to respond. कि if you didn't reply, then you will lose a point. That वो point आपका चला जाएगा, एक पे एक वो चलता रहता है. Perhaps that is what is making people go around it. Maybe that if they find certain subject कि यहाँ पे आरएसएस ने कोई गलती करी थी, ऐसा नहीं है कि आरएसएस ने हर कुछ अच्छा किया या हर कुछ, there would be mistake, because mistake is bound to happen from a
Yeah,
political party.
I'll
Yeah,
point out something that I disagree with RSS on. Their economic policy. They're
yeah,
very socialist, and I don't
yeah,
agree with them. But it's
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So there can be cases, but there has to be a genuine criticism. There has to be certain thing where you need to look. जैसे आपके, you have your own organization, you have having a problem, but you criticize it to make it better. You do it to have a better, not exactly ecosystem, but better institution. You just don't do it to, because I am a critic, I'm a political analyst, and those things don't help in the realist world. Yeah.
Yeah, see, if the criticism is on a specific policy discussion, it is always welcome, but it's never on a policy. It is always on wavy things, ki airy fairy ideas. It is, you just have to, like, Maulana Modi jibes and stuff like that. It doesn't help. Look, nobody's forcing you to vote for the BJP and RSS. Point number one. Point number two, if RSS does not even fight an election, RSS is a social organization that does social work, and they are happy doing their social work. In fact, RSS has severe disagreements with the BJP. Anybody who meets people of the RSS, Abbas has used the name of Ratan Sharda ji. You should maybe go and check out his YouTube channel on how much he criticizes the BJP.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should actually do that for a change. कभी कभी गलती से honest analysis भी कर दिया लोगों, which is my whole point, that there has to be a balance, but it's okay. So before we wrap things up, Abbas, just one last question to you. Any new projects that you are working on? Maybe you cannot discuss them in detail, but you can tell us ki we can look forward to, or something of that sort.
Yeah, one is definitely a book which is on Gandhi assassination. So that's there in progress at the publisher desk, and still we are working out on the contracts and all. That's in process. Then there's a so that book has got all background. There's no appreciation or vilification of Nathuram Godse or anything. When you say Gandhi assassination, हर किसी का गोडसे से कहानी शुरू होता है, but it's not about that. It's more about the whole political background and how why Gandhi was led to be killed, and more on that line. So that's there. And then there's a ginormous project of 6 books. I have thought 6 books. It may increase also on the Mughals, whom we call as Mughals, who actually are the Timurid Gurkhania. They hated Mughals, by the way. If you read Babur, Babur is abusing Mughals whole throughout, because there are different people, right? So that's one of the project, and the pre-order for it will begin anytime soon. I'm expecting in a month time or so. So that's there, and one of the project has almost materialized through as a film in terms of the concept, for which we would begin the shooting and all in the month of December or so, what we have targeted so far. So we'll reveal the subject of it also anytime soon. But yeah, again, it's very much based on the historical facts.
Awesome, awesome. I'm happy to see so many new authors popping up in the non-left Indian landscape, and I wish you all the best, all the success to you, and I hope you keep churning out books, and some of them get picked up as movies, and then eventually, you know. You do larger and bigger things in life. So Abbas, thanks a lot for coming, and I wish you all the success and happiness.
Thank you, Kushal. All my pleasure.
All right, guys, we'll wrap today's discussion up. But before we wrap it up, once again, in the description of the podcast, doesn't matter if you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to it on Spotify and iTunes, you have two links over there. One is the link to buy Abhas's book. You can go and buy the book over there. It's an interesting book where he has an honest narration of his own journey and why his mind changed. And you can agree with him, you can disagree with him, but you'll only agree or disagree once you buy the book and read it. So do that. Also, you can follow him on Twitter. So I have left his Twitter handle there in the description of the podcast. As far as I'm concerned, you know the drill. You can subscribe to the Cārvāka podcast YouTube channel, or you can leave. You can also subscribe on Spotify, iTunes, leave a review over there. Apparently, those things also help. Or you can support me by becoming a member on the YouTube channel, or you can become a member on Patreon, or you can buy the Charvak podcast merch or send your donations through UPI. I will see you guys next time. Until then, namaste. Take care. Bye bye.